Alright, our last property is the division property of radicals. So to divide radicals, the index must be the same. Then divide the coefficients and divide the radicands. Rationalize the denominator if a radical remains in the denominator. We will cover that down in this section, which we actually won't do in the video. You'll do that in class tomorrow. So today we're just going to be dividing. And again, we are going to do outside, outside, inside, inside. So here's what the rule means. If I have a square root b over c square root d, we are going to do outside, outside and divide a and c, and then inside, inside and divide b and d. When we have a square root over a square root, we can actually make them into one big square root if we want to. Similarly, if we have one big square root, we can make them into a square root over a square root, and we'll see examples of that. So here's our first example. 6 root 10 over 3 root 5. What we want to do is outside, outside, inside, inside. So this is 6 over 3, and then we can write a big root, 10 over 5. Outside, outside, inside, inside. Well, 6 divided by 3 gives me 2, and then we have the square root of 10 divided by 5 gives me 2. So 2 root 2, that 2 cannot be simplified, so we're done. Let's try a couple. First one, the square root of 13 over 100. So whenever we have one big square root, we should always check to see if we can reduce the numbers inside. 13 over 100, can that be reduced? No. So we can actually write this as the square root of 13 over the square root of 100. Square root of 13, well 13 is prime, so we can't do anything with that. So I'm just going to bring it down here. But the square root of 100 is what? 10. So the square root of 13 over 10 is our answer. Next one, we have 2 root 8 over 4 root 16. The first thing to notice here is the square root of 16 is a perfect square. And what is it? It's 4. So we can actually rewrite this as 2 root 8 over 4 times 4. Well, we know that 4 times 4 gives us 16. So we have 2 root 8 over 16. Now we need to start looking at that 8. How can we simplify the 8? We know that the 8 can be broken into the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. And then, of course, if you like to use the factor tree, you can do that here as well. Well, I broke it into a perfect square, which is 4 times 2. And then we know the square root of 4 is 2. So now I have 2 times 2, the outside, outside. That's 4. And we're left with the square root of 2. And that's all over 16. We're not quite done yet. We always need to check our outside, outside, because those can be reduced further. And I really should have written this over here. So we're going to go this way. 4 and 16, I can reduce that with a 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and I still have a root 2 on the top. And then 16 divided by 4 is 4. Another way to think about it, 4 over 16 is 1/4. So you always need to check those outside numbers and make sure you reduce them all the way. And of course, you don't have to write that 1 there. You could just write root 2 over 4. 2 more problems. We have the square root of 15 over square root of 3. 15 we can't break up anymore. 3 we can't simplify. So I actually want to make these into one big square root. The square root of 15 over 3. Well, how can I reduce 15 over 3? 15 divided by 3 is 5. So this is the square root of 5. And we can't go any further with that. So we're finished. Lastly, we're going to have 3 and then the square root of 5 over 9. Well, we know that 3 is 3 over 1. So let's turn it into a fraction since we have a fraction here. So we know we have 3 over 1. Now the square root of 5 over 9, we can't reduce 5/9. So we're going to break this into 2 little square roots. We have a square root 5 on the top, square root 9 on the bottom. Because we're given the square root of 5 over 9, we can just pull them apart and put the 5 on top and the 9 on the bottom. Well, what do you notice here? The square root of 9 is 3. So now I have 3 times 1 on the bottom, which is 3, and then on the top I have 3 root 5. Now we always check our outside, outside, because 3 over 3, 3's actually canceled. So I'm left with the square root of 5. So that's actually it for our notes for today. You will finish these notes in class tomorrow, so make sure to answer the questions and submit the quiz.